All right, so Clemson picks up a 34-28 in-conference win on the road against Florida State. Now, I'm never going to complain about a road game win in conference. Well, I'm lying. I am going to complain about the game, but obviously we're going to take this and run with it. I love the fact that you're able to finish off Florida State, and if we had lost this game, I mean, you never want to lose, but Florida State's on the short list of teams that I would never want to lose to. So I'm happy with pull this one off. And really, we did it behind a strong middle part of the game, the second quarter and third quarter in particular, especially right before halftime, right after halftime. We really controlled the very middle of this game. And the 10 unanswered points we scored in the third quarter really carried us the victory here because it was a 6-point game in the end. And Florida State really was down to an onside kick recovery. If they had recovered that and scored a touchdown, they're probably winning the game with an extra point kick and beating us 35-34. So it really was a much closer game than I would have liked at the end. I get Clemson was trying to run the clock and put Florida State in a situation where it was unlikely they could win. But still, a little bit too close for comfort, and especially with the way the college football playoff rankings are going to be set for this coming week, I think Clemson's probably going to be more in the 6 to 7 range, because we know Tennessee is probably going to jump them after beating Alabama. I think Michigan will jump them again because they beat Penn State fairly significantly, and we didn't beat Florida State significantly. And people say, yeah, maybe the game for Clemson was more one-sided than the score says. I really, at the end of the game, I don't think so, because it was, like I said, an onside kick and a touchdown away from being a tie game. You add in the extra point, Clemson loses. And it was not at all like that for Michigan. And yeah, the Tennessee-Alabama game was closer, but frankly, Alabama and Tennessee are both high caliber teams than Florida State and are right on par with Clemson, if not better. So I don't want to be too much of a Debbie Downer, but I expect Clemson will drop out of the top 4 this coming week and probably be more in the 6 to 7 range. I don't know what USC will be ranked because USC is playing number 20 Utah right now, and they're tied at 35 apiece. And they're currently 7 in the poll, so there's going to be a lot of teams that are potentially going to jump Clemson this coming week in the poll. I would not expect them to be top 4, especially not after this game. But there were some positives. I thought after DJ missed a bunch of throws early in the game, when I say missed, I mean just didn't see. He did not see a handful of players that would have been wide open downfield on intermediate to long passes, and probably at least one touchdown he just didn't throw. He just missed it. But after looking a little rattled early in the game, he settled down, had a pretty good second half. Will Shipley, I think this was the best game I've seen from Will Shipley as a runner. I know he's had some other big performances, but this was the first time I felt like I saw him consistently play with power, consistently breaking tackles and running through guys. And I know we can probably point to other examples from this season, but I've always been kind of frustrated when we won't run with Will Shipley in situations where we're facing stacked boxes or we're trying to gain a yard or two in short yard situations. It always has frustrated me because Will Shipley to me has never been that kind of power back. But during this game, he played with probably the most power I've seen from him to this point. So I was very happy with how he played. He had 20 carries for 121 yards. And like I said, some explosive plays in there as well, because he does have that speed we know, and that burst to get to the second level and even to the third level. For the receivers and pass catchers, Antonio Williams had 2 receptions for 76 yards and a touchdown, 1 big play at 59 yards. I'm glad he's gotten more involved as the season has gone on, because really when it comes to our receivers and our pass catchers, Shipley out of the backfield, Antonio Williams, Bo Collins, those are really the guys we can trust to make big plays, and that's about it. Joseph Mangata, really good recruit coming out of high school, just is not a good separator and just not a consistent producer. E.J. Williams showed some promise at some point. He's not even really a part of the offense anymore. Jake Brigginsoul can be a good player for us, but he's kind of inconsistent in terms of production. And even someone like Davis Allen's not really a dynamic athlete, so he's kind of limited in what he can do for you offensively. I will give props to the offensive line, though, in this game. They created a lot of opportunities for Will Shipley. They reset the line of scrimmage against a pretty good Florida State defensive front. So I thought this was a pretty good game for the offensive line. And a really good game for Shipley and a game for DJ. I know some people have started throwing him back into the first round of mocks again. And I can't for the life of me understand why people are still trying to mock draft DJ in the first round of the 2023 NFL draft at this point. I understand he's been better this year than last year, but there's still a lot of flaws. Like I say, he missed a lot of throws early in the game. He looked rattled. He made the wrong decision on some opportunities where he could have pitched the ball to the running back instead of trying to keep it for himself like he did. And there were some instances where he did not sense pressure soon enough and ended up taking sacks or getting pressured into making bad throws when he really shouldn't have. So his command of the pocket's a little bit questionable as well. Defensively, some good plays at points in times for defense. Fred Davis had a pretty good game from what I could tell. The defense line got after the quarterback, and he had some big plays as well, but the consistency was not there as opposed to in past weeks. We allowed 206 rushing yards. A lot of that came early on in the game. There were a couple long runs, at least 3 runs of 20 or more yards in this game against Clemson's defense. Something you're not used to seeing from our front and our linebackers. But yeah, it was not a great game against the run for us, frankly. I won't say too much about the passing game. I think Florida State got 254 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, they threw the ball 42 times, so I'm not upset by that. Like I said, we did have some good plays in the secondary. So overall, I'm not going to complain too much about the pass defense, and we were back to being mostly healthy for this game. But the run defense was a bit of a concern, and I think that's been a concern a couple times this year, as opposed to past seasons. When you look at the breakdown of this game, Clemson had 18 first downs compared to 28 for Florida State. The time of possession was fairly evenly split, but Florida State had 90 more total yards of offense than Clemson did. Really, if you replay this game over and over again, there are some instances where Florida State would win because they had some statistical advantages on the board. And I think Clemson dominating towards the end of the second half, or the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half is really what swayed this game. So it really comes down to making big plays when they matter, in my opinion. It's what changed the outcome for the Tigers. And a little bit of undisciplined play for us today, too. 8 penalties for 72 yards, compared to only 3 penalties for 17 for Florida State. So there's a lot we need to change up here. There's a lot we need to address and fix going forward. We are going to face unbeaten Syracuse next, and if we lose any game, frankly, we're not going to make the college football playoff. There's no world where a one-loss Tigers team makes the college football playoff at this point. I just don't see it. There's no the committee will definitely take a one-loss Bama or a one-loss Georgia over Clemson, so that's not going to happen. We need to win this game coming up against Syracuse next week. Syracuse is unbeaten. Luckily, it's at home, which I'm very happy for. I think that will give us a good boost, but there are concerns we need to address going into that game based on what we saw tonight. But that being said, a win's a win. And even if Clemson drops in the AP poll, we really should not be that upset about it because we're a long way away from the college football playoff. At this point, and we know a lot of teams like Bama losing to Tennessee. There's 3 SEC teams in contention here: Georgia, Bama, Tennessee. At least one of them is going to have a loss somewhere down the road. There are probably going to be 2 of them. There are probably going to be 2 more losses among that group of 3 teams. And then we have Michigan is going to be ahead of us. Ohio State's going to be ahead of us. They're going to play at some point. And one of them is going to lose and get knocked out of this conversation. USC is clinging to a 7-point lead now against Utah. And they're probably going to eventually have to deal with UCLA or some team like that from the Pac-12 down the road. UCLA, by the way, is undefeated right now. And there's going to be a good chance that they could lose. So, looking through this whole... Yeah, they play UCLA very late in the season in November. But looking through these schedules, Clemson being 7th or 8th in the AP poll after this week really is not a big deal. All we need to do is keep winning. And as long as we win the ACC Championship game as an undefeated team, we're going to get in the college football playoff. That's all we have to do. I say it's all we have to do like it's a small feat. There are gonna be some difficult games for us down the stretch, but certainly not along the lines of what USC will face in UCLA or what a Michigan will face in Ohio State. There's no more games like that for us down the stretch in the regular season. We will see what the ACC Championship brings. But yeah, no reason to really stress about dropping in the AP poll. It doesn't matter at this point in the season. But yeah, that's all I really saw from this game. I know it was mostly negative and not positive, but like I said, any win we can get on the road against an in-conference opponent is a tremendous boost for us. And I was very happy to see that we were able to pull this out and we were able to play as well as we did in stretches of this game. Not throughout the entirety of the game, but the stretches where we were hot, we were on fire. And I'm hoping we can get more consistent with that going into future games.